Hi guys, this week I almost did not record because I just haven't been feeling it. I have so much to talk about. I feel like I'm always gonna have something to talk about. Like there's always something going on in my life and there's always something that I'm learning. These videos are just me talking to you guys about the downloads that I'm having, streams of consciousness if you will, things that are just heavy on my heart that I'm learning in my life. Sometimes I feel like there's not a time that I don't want to talk about a certain topic, but I don't know, this week I genuinely wasn't gonna film because I just wasn't feeling it, if that makes sense. This is something that I actually feel like such an important thing to talk about, because how we think about ourselves or how we live our lives and the beliefs that we have, the ideas and the things that we think about in our head and in the internal side of ourselves isn't always gonna be the thing that everyone else that's around us is gonna experience from us. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. For example, you could be the most kindest soul, somebody who cares deeply, and I'm talking about genuinely deeply cares about everything that you're doing, and you care about the people that are around you, you care about the experiences that other people have around you. Like, you are somebody who is gonna, you want good things to come out of your life and you want to put good things out, and you have a good heart and you care about people. You want to be a positive effect in this life. You don't want to be a negative one. It's just interesting to think about this because that's just not how other people experience you all the time. It's just not the reality. So that's why I'm titling this video, Perception is ultimately blocking the growth that you could be having in this life, the abundance you could be having in this life, the blessings that you could be having in this life. I think it's very important to understand that, like, what's going on internally. You could be the most uprightest person, somebody who genuinely does everything in the right way, goes by the rules, does the right things, everything in between. But if you have a negative attitude, you have a very negative, tone in how you deliver something. And if you just seem like somebody who's very hard to work with, or you're somebody who is, other people can't really come up to you because it's just like you kind of give that energy of like, don't approach me type of thing. And I think your intentions could be all the right things, and you could be wanting to do the right. And that's why I think the first point I want to make is that none of that genuinely matters. Okay, nobody cares if you are doing all the right things. Nobody cares if you are following the rules. Genuinely, nobody cares if you are perfect at your job. In fact, nobody cares if you are the only one who cares about the job. Like, I'm just giving you like a general example of like maybe a job, right? And someone's incompetence of like not doing their job in the best way possible is far more like looked over than someone doing the greatest job but doesn't have the greatest attitude. So somebody could be the most incompetent person that you've ever met. Like, they actually don't know what they're doing in their job. They rarely are doing their job in the best way possible, or even at all. And if they have a good attitude and they are just easy to work with, okay, just easy, they're easily approachable, that you can approach them, you kind of like, they have a good attitude, let's just say. But somebody who is like perfect at their job, but they're just upright and they just like it's like they have the most negative attitude, and you can't even approach them because they think they're so perfect at their job. If that's the case, nobody looks at like how great the job is getting done if the attitude is this way, versus somebody could be literally not even doing their work, but if they are nice and they're easily to work with and stuff like that, that is someone who will get more of the notice and the growth, versus this person right here who is doing all the right things, but and by the way, they're doing the right things because they care about the job, by the way, and they care about what they're doing, but let's say you work at a place where the environment isn't the absolute best, or the system isn't the absolute best, right? And if this person right here is like so frustrated because they care so much about the job and they want to do the best that they can, but because of the frustration, they let that overtake them, and they ultimately kind of let that take over in the job, like when they come in, and they let that affect them, right? And they kind of, and it all stems from the fact that there is no order when there should be order. There is no proper system when there should be proper system. The people that should care about the job aren't caring as much, and it's like this person is taking all the responsibility because they care so much. Nobody even cares to look at this person right here and see how they care so much, because the perspective of what it looks like from the outside, of how that person is sort of communicating that in a way. Does that make sense? And then if you have another person who works in this crazy environment, genuinely doesn't even care about the job, okay? But they have a good attitude and they show up and they just have a good attitude, even though they care nothing about the job. Do you see how like this person is going to be more appreciated because they're just easy to work with? So the point I'm trying to make is because it's because of the perspective of how people view us in this life, and the perception other people have of us, of how we show up in our day-to-day lives. You could be the greatest person in this planet Earth and the most uprightest person in this planet Earth, but if your attitude, your tone, how you show up does not match your inner, which is the fact that you care, and you deeply care so much that it's important to you, you do everything the right way, but because things maybe not be the way you want them to be, if you let your circumstances take over and kind of get frustrated and you're like angry, nobody cares that the system is broken. No one is even gonna look at that. They don't care. Like, they literally will be like, okay, and so what? Because your attitude is so bad, literally no one will even pay attention to what is really wrong, because you're not the reason. There's nothing wrong with how you are kind of viewing it. You're probably right? Like, if you are somebody who cares about a job and is very like, is trying to be a perfectionist, trying to do everything the right way, it's not your fault that certain things may not be the way they should be. It's not your fault. In fact, it's the company's fault, or perhaps even management, or whatever the case may be. But if you are the one who lets that affect them and show up maybe not in the best way because that affects you, the fact that there's no system, the fact that things are not in order, nobody cares about the fact that the system is broken. They care more about how you are showing up, and they're gonna perceive that you are a negative person when you're not, when you literally all just care about the job and it being done the best way possible. So the point I'm trying to make is that how we show up and how we're being perceived rarely matches who we really genuinely are. in the inside. I think personally for me, I often thought like my skills, my ability to do something, and kind of, you know, the value that I bring to the table, and knowing my worth and how much I am contributing and how much I know that I could go elsewhere and get paid more for whatever the case may be, or I know how much of value that I'm bringing into the room. For me, I genuinely used to think that that was enough. Like, that should be able to help me grow in life. That should be just able to move me in life, and growth should just be unstoppable. Growth should be just something that just happens naturally from that effect of, I am good at what I do, I'm good at this, that, and the next. These are my skills. I am the best at this, that, and the next. So therefore, it's common sense. I'm good at what I do. What do you mean? Like, I should get promoted. I should get moved up. I should be able to, people should be able to see the value that I'm bringing into the room. And I'm just now discovering that, like, that is rarely not the fact or the case. You could be the greatest individual in the whole entire planet Earth. It won't be enough. That cannot be enough in its own. And, you know, I think in the same way, maybe you feel overlooked, or you feel like your skills should be enough. You feel like, okay, this is what I provide. Like, this is what I'm bringing to the table. What do you mean? Like, what else do you need? So in the same way, maybe you feel like that. The first thing I want you to get from this video is that it can get you into rooms, you know, and you probably are good at what you do. You probably are adding so much value to whatever it is that you're doing in your life. But you need to understand that it is how you're perceived that's actually gonna move you forward, you know? So in other words, like, if you are not putting the right energy, or if you are not, you know, doing things with the intentionality of understanding how you come off to others, it's like that in itself is not going to be enough. But your performance is ultimately what you do, you know, it is what your job, the value that you bring, all these things. And perception is how people look at you and how the world receives you in a way. And I think we really need to understand those two things, because in life we do so many different things in this life, and I'm not saying that other people's opinion should define how you move about in this life, but I genuinely do think it's important to consider how you are being perceived in this life. How are people experiencing you? You know, do you care about what you do, but you're coming off as somebody who is perhaps arrogant, or is too good, or is too perfect, or like, how are you coming off, and how are people genuinely interacting with you? And in that interaction, what kind of experience are they having? How are they impacted by you in a way? Because I think you can be a good person and you could genuinely care, but if you do care, but because you let your frustrations of perhaps the environment that you work in or the circumstance that you're in reflect on how other people perceive you, they're not gonna see the problem at hand or what's affecting you. They're going to see how they experience you. And I think that's just such an important thing to consider, because I've never really thought about that in my life. I thought that if I show up and I do my job, I do the best that I can, and this, that, and the next, that should just be enough. Like, that should be good in its own. It wasn't until very recently I really started to understand the the importance of, it doesn't have to be necessarily anything. Like, it could be work, it could be anything, okay? Your performance could be the perfect and best thing possible, but if your perception is not where it needs to be, meaning how other people perceive you, how other people interact with you and experience you is not where it needs to be, it's going to be very hard for you to grow in life. It's going to be very hard for you to get promoted in jobs, is what I'm noticing. It's going to be very hard for you to even be considered to be the person to be chosen. And of course, at the end of the day, like, we shouldn't let other people's opinions matter to us, but for those who are in the corporate world, you know, and this is such a common thing in the corporate world and in jobs and in companies, like, this is a huge thing, because it's like, if people remotely see someone as someone who's difficult to work with, or someone who is like I don't know, negative, or even though that person has all the rights in the world to have a negative attitude because how the system is so broken and how nothing is in order, at the end of the day, nobody cares about how the system is broken. They're gonna care more about the person and how that person is showing up and their attitude and how they are being present in the moment with them. So I just think that's a very cool perspective to have. And I think it was very recently that I just started to understand that in the most largest way, because like I said, you could have the most right intentions in this life, and you could have all the right way of thinking and how you want to improve this, that, and the next. But if your delivery isn't the right way, if how you interact is in the most right way, if how you show up is in the most right way, meaning how other people perceive you is in the most right way, it's just so easy for you to get counted out, and it's just so easy for you to be bypassed, and it's so very easy for you to be looked at as the bad guy, or as the one that is problematic, when in reality you genuinely are the only one who actually cares about it, whatever the case may be. You are the only one who is a perfectionist, who is the one that wants to improve things, who is the one that wants to actually change things and make them better. It's like you could be the most, again, upright person, but if you are not being perceived in the right way, I just think it's so interesting how it doesn't matter what you provide in this world and what you bring to the table, that just will not matter. So at the end of the day, perception is going to be something that's going to matter way more. People look for that. People look for people that are just easy to work with or to be around. People just look for the thing that's the simplest to deal with. Even you may not even be the problem, you know, maybe it's the thing that's the problem, but you are going to be the one that's going to be looking bad because of how you reacted, and that's why I think like how you regulate your emotions, your feelings, and how you show up, all of that matters, and it's very important to take account to, because it will determine if you are going to be chosen for any role or anything in general in this life. If you are going to be the one that's chosen in general, which you shouldn't live to be chosen in this life, but I just think in general there is a reason for that, you know. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that you could be doing all the right things and you could be the best at what you do, but if your perception is off and how people experience you is off, your growth is going to be blocked completely. And I think that's just like a very harsh truth that I actually had to come to an understanding to very recently, that okay, like this is what it is at the end of the day. And I think overall, even for yourself, I think it's just an important thing to be aware of. Okay, first of all, like what you are not changing, you're choosing, right? So if you're in a situation you know is gonna bring the worst out of you, you know isn't gonna bring you happiness, you know isn't like what you want to do anymore, you're choosing that thing every single day that you go into it and you do it. So you are choosing it. by default, okay? So you don't even get to complain, because a lot of the times the reason we show up like that and the reason we do all these things is because most likely it's because we know we could be doing something better. We know that there is something else out there for us, and we know that that environment isn't the highest quality or the quality that we could be doing, or that place needs improvement, but because there won't be any improvements or changes due to whatever the case may be, you are stuck seeing everything that's wrong there and you cannot change it, and you've tried to change it but you cannot change it. Ultimately, you get frustrated every day that you go into that situation, because what are you gonna do? What are you, like, it's your fault that you're choosing that environment every day. It is your fault that you are not changing your situation. So you need to be able to change your situation, get up on out of there. You know what I mean? Like, you just need to get up on out of there if that thing brings the worst out of you. If that thing doesn't bring the best out of you, genuinely. If you get frustrated because nothing is changing, like, I just feel like whatever we're not changing, we're choosing, and so therefore it's a very important thing to be aware of our, obviously, presence and how we show up and how other people are perceiving us and how other people are experiencing us, how we interact with others, how do we make others feel. And if your job or the thing that you're doing in your life is affecting how you are showing up, I just think it's time to say goodbye to that thing, or it's time to either accept the situation for what it is and do like a mental switch in your mind and do the best that you can to be the best version of yourself every day that you're going in, even though the situation is going to be frustrating. The situation is going to be bring the worst out of you, because you care and because you genuinely are the only one who cares, and you see other people not caring. That in itself is going to frustrate you. And I just think like it's such a huge thing to be aware of our presence, to be aware of how we're impacting others and how other people are experiencing us. And if we're not happy with our situation or the circumstance that we are in currently, we can change it. And I understand sometimes life, it's hard to make a change. It's hard to get out of the thing that you're in. But until then, I think it's important to understand maybe it's best not to complain and learn how to not complain. And maybe it's important to understand that we have to accept the situation for what it is, and it isn't going to change, it isn't going to improve, but we cannot let that situation change us and how we're showing up. But it's very easy for the situation to change us and how we're showing up, and maybe it's bringing the worst out of us. It's a challenge for oneself, because at the end of the day, it's going to challenge you to how does it feel like to work in a place or to be in a place where you know you could be doing something else or something better, or you know there needs to be a change but nobody's making the change because maybe everybody has given up, whatever the case may be. I think it's a good challenge for you. Even you can see it as a training ground almost, because it's challenging you to consider the idea that, okay, how do you make sure that your environment is not changing who you are as a person? And how do you make sure that no matter your circumstance, you are not being changed as a person? You should still show up as yourself. Yeah, I just think that at the end of the day, you have to understand that how people are perceiving you isn't necessarily, like, other people's opinion and all of that isn't necessarily something you need to be that's not the point. The point is, how do you want to make other people feel, you know? And a lot of the times when we let our circumstances get the best of us, and let the environment that we're in, if it's toxic, get the best of us, and this part of us that we don't like comes out, it's like we know that's not who we are, you know? And at the end of the day, it all goes back to the fact that you care so much. That's why you are so devoted to this thing in the first place, and that's why this thing's frustrate you in the first place. Because the person that doesn't care, I can promise you that they're not worrying about these things. They're moving on with their life, or they have gotten good at hiding it and being perceived as if like they like don't care, or like whatever the case may be. Some people are good at that. But if you are genuinely someone who cares, but it's just not, it's coming out in the other way, I just want you to know and ask yourself, like, how do I make sure I treat people the best way that I can? How do I make sure that I don't let the environment and the toxicity of wherever I'm at, change who I am as a person, and how do I make sure that people experience me in the best possible way possible? Because it all goes back, and it boils back. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because you care so much and you are letting these things frustrate you, it's making you look bad. It's not cute. It's making you look genuinely bad, because you are the one who will say something out loud. You are the one who's gonna like actually bring voice to what you see is wrong, when other people are just choosing to ignore it or just bypass it, and they're just moving on with their life because they don't care about the thing. So at the end of the day, it just makes you look bad, you know? And that's just something that you have to take and understand, that okay, I need to change how I'm moving in this life when it comes to how I'm being perceived in this life, because I do care, you know? I do want to show up positive. I do want to be a light. I do want to be the best that I can be. And most importantly, I care about how other people feel. So in the process of this thing that you're going through, letting it affect how you are interacting with others and how people are experiencing you, you need to really reconsider. It's not worth, you know, you being perceived as this negative, not fun person to be around. It's just not, it's not worth it. I care more about how other people are feeling around me. And sometimes maybe you're in the same way, that's just not what's going on in your life. Maybe that's just not how you're being perceived, and that's okay. And that's the whole point of this video, is that I want you to know that the reason why you feel like you're not growing, or you feel like you're stuck in that place, is because how you're being perceived is determining all of that factors. And no matter how good of a person you are, no matter how great of your performance is in whatever it is that you're doing, if you are not being perceived in a positive light, that's why you're not growing, you know? That's why your blessings are not coming in, and that is why you look like the bad guy when really you're the only one who cares.